Welcome back then. This is the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. My name is Arabi Lekumete. We're giving you a market sense. Now, we're hoping then to, of course, get to speak to the ShopRite CEO as well, Mr. Engelbrecht, in a moment or two, and get a sense of just the company's earnings picture and how things have been over the last year. For now, though, let's unpack this market picture, get a sense of where things have been. Still, the big influential point is the Fed's meeting, the FOMC. They're expected to deliver their meeting as well tomorrow, which will give a sense of where inflation expectations are for the foreseeable future. And that does mean that if any sort of sense is given that inflation may begin to pick up again, it does mean that the Fed may look to taper back on its process of buying bonds and putting money back into the economy, which of course has put a few fears into the market. And if that does happen, it does mean that the markets are going to get slightly depressed, and you will see quite a bit of red. We did initially see record highs out in the Dow Jones Industrial and the Nasdaq yesterday out in the United States market, so that positivity did come through ever so slightly, and it actually helped the Asian market go into some positivity as well. 0.75% higher though for the Shanghai Composite, so doing very well there, gaining 26 points, 0.2% better off as well for the Hang Seng out in Hong Kong. The Nikkei following suit, just 0.5% stronger there. European markets are also in the green today, 0.2% higher for the FTSE 100 out in London, as well as the DAX out in Germany, with only the CAC 40 managing a slight gain, but it's still 0.25% better off, which is more than we can say even for the local index, which is down 0.2%. Does mean emerging markets not necessarily enjoying the fruits of any benefits coming out of the stock markets, out of the rest over here. Financial counters being one of the big losers as well today, nearly 1% loss there, and that comes from the banking stocks, which have lost 1.4%, so too have insurers and the like as well. Resources are 1 2/3% weaker. That comes from the platinum miners, which are 1.5% down today. Even though gold miners are 0.25% higher, I think one must take a look at the diversified miners, which have struggled of late as well, and that has continued to push down the resources overall. There is a just over 0.1% higher for the industrial, so some gain there, not enough however to allay that decline in the all share overall. In terms of stocks that have gone higher today, Liberty 2 Degrees has gained 4.6%, being one of the main big gainers there, while Cartrack, Murray and Robertson, WBHO are in negative territory, down over 3% for each of those. Construction getting a bit of a hammering there as well, with one industrial firm on that front. In terms of commodities, well, we're down as well for the Brent crude price. It's a fourth day of decline then, as we're seeing it now, 1.4% weaker in fact, $67.90 a barrel. Platinum losing a little bit there, with gold sitting ever slightly higher, but still not the numbers we've seen of late, sitting just below that $2,000 a fine ounce mark. And then the currency against the greenback, specifically 14 Rand 80. Yes, some positivity there, but really not too much to write home about. It's just around 1/3% stronger. With the euro, it's 0.2% stronger is the local currency, then at 17.68, then 20 Rand and 50 cents for a British pound. Let's have a chat then with Owen Nkomo from Inkunzi Wealth, who joins us now as we unpack this market picture a little bit. Owen, good to chat to you then as well on this Tuesday afternoon. Yes, the market's doing a little bit, and very quickly I'd like to get your thoughts then on if the Fed decides indeed that things may have to change when it comes to the inflation picture. Do you see the markets reacting negatively, even more so, to the news?
Hi, Arabile. Look, at this stage, it's quite difficult to see to envisage what the markets will do, because the markets seem sometimes to be very disconnected to the reality on the ground. But this new pronunciation from the Fed is very important, because it starts to shape a new future for the interest rate environment in America and certainly to the rest of the world. So I do think that the markets, once they finish digesting this news, they will also certainly start to look at the markets differently.
Yeah, that certainly will play a huge part, and of course that FOMC meeting does happen then tomorrow, so we'll get a sense as the market progresses into the remainder of the week as to how that will infiltrate. Locally though, Owen, yes, we've got earnings news, but some of the big things have really been Eskom. I mean, the number of hours we've continued to suffer as a country in darkness then has certainly played a huge role, and we can't grow this economy if we continue to have that sense as well.
100%, 100%, Arabile. I was doing some work yesterday, got cut off electricity probably 2 times yesterday. This morning, I was doing some work as well. We got cut off because one wakes up early, 5 o'clock, you're already working. And then there's no electricity at that time as well. So, it's becoming, in my humble view, the biggest challenge that President Ramaphosa is sitting on. And I think he needs to certainly put us into his confidence as to how is it going to fix this issue of Eskom. Because we can talk all we want about jobs when I'm but if we don't have electricity as a country, we may as well forget. I mean, it's such a big inconvenience. What's the problem this time is the coal wet again, in their storage. What is the issue? And we can't have a problem that lasts us close to 15 years as a country, and it's such an important issue, and we cannot solve it. I really think we need a little bit more communication about what's the broader structure or what's the broader plan for sorting out Eskom urgently, because this is honestly proving to be extremely uncomfortable. In an economy that is in a recession environment, we need Eskom to be number one priority for the current president and future presidents, Arabile. If we could find 500 billion rands to fight COVID, why are we not fighting a disease we've dealt with for 15 years? We surely can do that.
Yeah, one would certainly think so. I mean, considering that 10% of last year's 8,760 hours, or close to that anyway, was spent in the dark here in South Africa. Yesterday, we got a sense then from March until early this year, just how many hours as well we have spent and how many days we've spent in the dark then. It does seem like it's going to continue at least for another 5 years by the seams of things. Do you think it becomes just an infrastructure problem, a politics problem, or is it just the fact that the parastatal isn't run by the right people?
I think it's a combination of all of those things, Arabile, and you put it nicely. It's politics. It's, in my humble view, the biggest issue with Eskom is probably the management issue and the fact that it's a state-owned enterprise, and we've seen a lot of state-owned enterprise struggling to deliver. Clearly, you're talking about SAA and many other state-owned enterprises that are not at the forefront of our conversations. Eskom and SAA, obviously, because we there've been big talking points, and Eskom, we wake up in the morning, we need Eskom. We are sick at the hospital, we need Eskom. The factory needs to produce. So I really think a combination of the politics and mismanagement of the entities is a big deal. We think that the sooner you get Eskom to be run properly, I think there's a bit of semblance of improvement on that front, but I think we can still do more. You can't drive the same vehicle that's got the same passengers who've been sitting in that passengers if you're trying to take Eskom in a new direction. I believe that we need to realize and accept that we need to change some of the people that are in the driving seat, Arabile, or some of the people that are very influential in the decisions that are being made by Andre Director and other guys. Whether those decisions is making a great or not is still to be debated. This is a short period of time. We haven't seen some results that we can point out to, but some initiatives have been taken where you are starting to see municipalities losing electricity because they have not been paying for electricity. And I think that is a direction that we need to start embracing as a country. We need to start paying for the services. And I think we're paying tax on the one end, but the government, are they allocating those resources properly to deal with our big issues that will ensure that we don't keep sending more people to depend on social support from the government, but we have an economy that can work with reliable electricity and entrepreneurs can go out there and create jobs.
Can the private sector play a role here? I mean, we talk that we don't want to privatize Eskom, specifically that's government's point of view anyway, but can the private sector play some sort of role in ensuring that this actually does pick up and the entity does get better?
Yes, 100%, Arabelle, and I think the private sector is relatively a better allocator of capital. Government has struggled, and this is not a South Africa thing; it's a global thing. To get the private sector, the right mix between government and private sector, I think will be okay. But I wouldn't say let's privatize Eskom. It's quite an extremely strategic company. You don't want people that are, at the lower end of the economy or wage scale. You don't want them to start paying exorbitant pricing for electricity. You need the right mix. You need certain segregations, certain areas must be allowed to pay a little bit less, and some areas must pay a little bit more, until we get to a point where we're managing our finances better as a state, and then you can start to average the number nicely so that all citizens are paying the same amount of rent when we started to be more efficient. And I think that's what's necessary. And for future leaders of the continent, those big projects that have been promulgated or they've been thought about for trying to sort out the shortage of electricity on the continent, I think we need to make sure we invest in that, because this is not just a South Africa problem, it's a continental problem, Arabile. But the private sector comes in with the technical skills and with their bigger balance sheets and their ability to raise cash. I think Eskom can be sorted out without a doubt.
Yeah, we've also done a lot of borrowing though of late, and I mean, I'm not advocating for it in any sense of the word, but if we're struggling for financing and we're struggling for funds in a time when we need to fix these elements, which then we can pay back for once everything is fixed, should we be looking to borrow in order to fix this problem, or is that counterproductive in this sense?
I think, Arabile, we need to take some very historic and painful decisions with the broad fiscus of the country. We need to say, we make more than 1.5 trillion each year. We need to make decisions that will, make sure that resources are allocated to deal with Eskom, Arabile. We found 500 billion rands. Why are we not doing the same for Eskom? And I think, why not doing the same for Eskom, Arabile? I think it's very important, in my view, for us to make sure that we can use the debts that we find for the right reasons, and that's the most important thing. Not all debt is bad. Some debt is good as long as it's properly managed.
Yeah, that becomes the big story then, as to how exactly to manage that story as well. Owen, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it. Always good chatting to you then. Owen Nkomo then from Inkunzi Wealth joining us then as well to give that market picture. So it certainly has been an interesting year for one of the companies, that is Shoprite, a large retailer operating over 2,300 stores across Africa then. And of course, we're going to try and chat to the CEO, Peter Engelbrecht, after the short break. So do stay tuned to SABC News. We're back right after this.